My name is Vivian Margaret Hartwell. I'm 68 years old. I spent 40 years as a real estate attorney in Charleston, building a fortune most people never knew existed. I don't wear diamonds. I don't show off my wealth. I live quietly in a white brick house overlooking the marshes. My husband, Richard, passed away 5 years ago. Since then, peace and privacy have been my only luxuries. That peace ended at exactly 2:17 p.m. on a warm Thursday afternoon. My phone rang. I recognized the number instantly, my daughter, Margot. I hadn't heard from her in 3 weeks. Usually when she called, she wanted something. I answered. "Hello, Margot." Her tone was unnervingly cheerful. "Mom, we're leaving tomorrow. I sold your beach house." I blinked, thinking I must have misheard her. "You... what?" "I sold your beach house," she repeated, slower this time, like I was the one losing my mind. "Trevor and I found a great buyer, cash deal. We close tomorrow. Have you ever had someone steal from you and expect you to thank them for it?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the sunlight spilling through the blinds. A laugh almost escaped my lips, not out of humor, but disbelief. "You sold my house?" I said calmly. "Yes, Mom," she replied, impatience leaking through her fake politeness. "You weren't using it anyway. It's been sitting there empty for years. Trevor and I need this money to start fresh in Florida. You always said you wanted me to be happy." Her words were so bold, so shameless. I couldn't help but laugh. Quietly at first, then louder. "Mom?" she asked, her voice tightening. "Why are you laughing?" "Oh, sweetheart," I said, finally catching my breath. "You made a big mistake." There was silence on the other end, a long one. I could almost hear her brain scrambling for control. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. I looked out at the marsh, the wind shifting through the reeds. "Tell me something, Margot," I said softly. "Who handled the sale for you? What agency?" Her tone turned defensive. "Why? That's not your concern anymore. You signed the deed years ago." "My name's on it too." "So you didn't use my old firm then?" I asked. "No," she snapped. "I didn't need your old friends. Trevor found a guy online who..." She stopped mid-sentence, realizing she'd said too much. I smiled. "Ah, so Trevor found him." "Mom, please don't start," she said, her voice rising. "Trevor and I talked about this for months. We agreed it's the best decision. We already signed the closing papers. The payment clears tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning," I repeated. "And what time will that be?" She hesitated. "Around 10. "Why?" "Nothing," I said lightly. "You'll see soon enough." Her irritation turned to anger. "Why are you being so weird about this? I'm trying to help both of us. You're sitting on assets you don't even use." "Help?" I asked, almost whispering. "By selling something that doesn't belong to you." "I am on the deed, Mother," she snapped. "Legally, I have every right to sell my share. You should be thanking me. At least I got a good price before the market crashes." I nodded to myself. "You sound proud of yourself." She huffed. "Don't guilt-trip me. Trevor says you've been hoarding property for years. We need to start living, not waiting to die in a house full of memories." I laughed again, low and slow. "You're right about one thing," I said. "You're going to start living, but not in the way you think." "Mom, what are you talking about?" she pressed. I didn't answer. I could feel the old attorney in me waking up, the part that used to dismantle greedy people in courtrooms and smile while doing it. "Margot," I said finally, "I have a question. When you sold the house, did the buyer ask for verification from both owners?" She hesitated again. "Trevor handled that." "Don't worry, everything's fine." I smiled wider. "Oh, I'm not worried." "Good," she said quickly, "because tomorrow at 10 we're gone. You won't have to deal with us anymore." That's wonderful, I said softly. Enjoy your evening, Margot. She paused. Mom, what do you mean by that? Nothing you'd understand right now, I said. But you will. Soon. Are you threatening me? She shot back. I chuckled. Not at all. I'm congratulating you. You've just set in motion the most expensive lesson of your life. Her breath caught. Mom. But I ended the call. For a long moment, I sat in silence, the sound of the marsh birds filling the air. Then I started laughing again, deep, uncontrollable laughter that echoed through my empty house. Because what my daughter didn't know would destroy her. She thought she'd outsmarted her mother. She thought she was walking away with easy money. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. Have fun in Florida, darling, I whispered to the quiet room. You'll need it. I picked up my glass of sweet tea, looked out the window, and smiled as the sky turned gold. The next 24 hours would be the longest of Margot's life, because tomorrow morning, when the bank opened, every card she'd played would come crashing down. I couldn't stop laughing, because in 24 hours, my daughter would learn the most expensive lesson of her life. If you've ever dealt with an entitled family, you need to hear this. Subscribe, because this gets wild. I grew up in a narrow 2-bedroom house on the east side of Charleston. My mother worked as a seamstress. My father hauled cargo at the docks. We didn't have much, but we had pride. My mother always said, "Let them underestimate you. That's when you strike." Those words stayed with me. I worked 3 jobs to pay for school. I waited tables, cleaned offices, and typed term papers for other students until my fingers cramped. When I finally entered law school in the 1970s, I already knew what it meant to fight for a seat at the table. Real estate law was a man's world then. The senior partners made jokes, offered fake smiles, and expected me to quit. I didn't. I studied harder, worked longer, and learned to stay silent until I had leverage. When they underestimated me, I made sure to turn that into profit. By the 1980s, I was buying and selling Charleston properties while most of my peers were still paying off debt. I restored rundown homes and flipped them at 3 times the cost. Every sale was proof that control, not chance, builds wealth. The firm I started, Hartwell & Associates, began in a rented corner office with one client who paid late. 10 years later, developers and city planners called me directly. They stopped laughing when they realized I owned half the buildings they worked in. Success brought respect, but it also brought silence. I learned that the less people know about what you truly have, the safer your life becomes. I didn't show my full hand. I never have. Then came Richard. He was a fellow attorney, steady, intelligent, unthreatened by my ambition. We met in a courthouse hallway during a property dispute. He challenged my arguments, and I liked that. We married when I was 28. Together we built an empire of investments, firms, and trust accounts. Our marriage was a partnership built on equality, not dependency. When our daughter, Margot, was born, I wanted her to have what I didn't: comfort and freedom. I gave her both. Private schools, luxury summers, the best of everything. But comfort breeds carelessness. She never saw the value of the struggle that built her life. When Richard died 5 years ago, I felt hollow. I buried my husband and stepped back from public work. People assumed I was a lonely widow in a beach house. They didn't know the full picture. I had more assets, more control, and more foresight than anyone imagined. Then I began to notice something unsettling. Margot stopped visiting family. She came for business. She spoke of what's next instead of, "How are you?" Her tone shifted, her patience thinned. She had inherited her father's intelligence, but not his integrity. I kept quiet. I watched. I let her believe she understood the value of what we built. but money has a way of revealing people's true nature. And after Richard died, I watched my daughter transform into someone I didn't recognize. Drop a comment if you've ever ignored red flags in your own children. Let's talk about it. Margot was born into comfort. From the moment she opened her eyes, her world was silk dresses, private tutors, and catered birthdays. She went to the best schools in Charleston, then to a finishing academy in Boston. When other girls spent summers waiting tables, she spent hers in Paris, taking photographs of food she never finished. Richard and I wanted her to have everything we never did, and we gave it to her. Every time she wanted a new experience, we said yes. Every door was opened before she even knocked. Looking back, that was our mistake. We raised her to live in abundance, but not to build it. Margot was bright, quick with numbers, confident in a crowd, beautiful in a way that made people listen, but she never developed grit. She didn't know what it meant to earn something or to lose it. She moved through life like the world owed her applause. At 26, she married Trevor. He was handsome, charming, and dangerous in the way only reckless men can be. A stockbroker who spoke in promises and confidence, he made everyone feel like they were about to become rich. I saw the performance immediately. Richard didn't. "He's ambitious," Richard said once. "He'll figure it out." I stayed silent because marriage isn't a contract you rewrite for someone else. But I knew. I knew Trevor's ambition was a balloon, bright, impressive, and always close to bursting. The first sign came 6 months after their wedding. Trevor pitched what he called an investment opportunity. He convinced Margot to use their joint savings, $50,000, to buy into a new trading platform. A week later, the company folded. When I heard, Margot brushed it off. "It's part of the game, Mom. You win some, you lose some." But Trevor didn't lose anything. He learned something, that Margot's safety net was deep, and her mother's wallet even deeper. They moved from one apartment to another, each more expensive than the last. New cars, new clothes, new excuses. The pattern became predictable. They spent. They struggled. Then came the phone calls. The first time she asked for $10,000. "Just a loan, Mom. We'll pay you back next month." They never did. When Richard died, I expected grief. Instead, Margot came to me 2 weeks after the funeral, not with tears, but with paperwork. She asked how his assets were divided. "Everything remains in my name," I told her, "as it always has." Her smile faded. "But, Mom, you don't need all of it. We're barely keeping up." I said nothing, because I understood what she was really saying. She thought she was entitled to what she hadn't earned. After that, her tone changed. Her visits became shorter. Her compliments came laced with resentment. "Must be nice to have so much while we struggle," she'd say with a half smile. It wasn't envy that bothered me. It was expectation. The quiet assumption that everything I had should one day belong to her. I began noticing small things. The way she'd ask casual questions about property titles, the way she'd linger around my desk, the way her husband called me Viv instead of Mom, as if testing how close he could get to disrespect. I stayed quiet. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but it's the best disguise for strategy. Then 6 months ago, Margot came to visit. She arrived alone, unannounced, holding flowers she probably bought out of guilt. I was in the garden when I noticed the office light on. I walked inside quietly. She didn't hear me. She was behind my desk, rifling through my drawers, her hands trembling as she flipped through files. When she turned and saw me standing there, she froze. Her lips parted, ready to lie. But I saw the truth in her eyes. That moment confirmed what I had feared and what I was prepared for. That's when I knew exactly what she was planning. If you're loving this story, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Margot's visits always came with smiles and motives. That day, she said she was dropping by to check on me. She brought my favorite lemon tart from the cafe downtown, acting the part of the doting daughter. I knew better. Guilt has a way of dressing itself as kindness. While I brewed coffee, she wandered through the house. My home office door was half open. She'd seen me go in and out of it for years, but that day, curiosity overpowered caution. When I returned, the tart sat untouched and the house was too quiet. I followed the silence and found her sitting behind my desk, pretending to scroll through her phone. The papers on my table weren't in their usual order. I smiled, pretending not to notice. Later that evening, I checked the file drawer. A folder labeled Hilton Head Property Deed had been pulled forward. Inside it was the documentation for the beach house Richard and I bought 30 years ago. A private slice of ocean worth about $850,000 today. So that's what caught her eye. The following weeks were full of her new, innocent questions. Mom, do you still visit the Hilton Head house much? Do you rent it out? Who's it going to someday? Each question was wrapped in fake curiosity. I played along. Oh, that old place? Hardly worth thinking about anymore, I'd say, smiling. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Then came the call I wasn't supposed to hear. I had walked past her guest room door late one evening. Her voice was low, sharp, almost gleeful. Yes, I saw the papers. It's still in both our names. My heart went cold. I had added her as co-owner years ago, back when I believed in legacy and trust. Richard and I thought it would simplify things after we were gone. We never imagined our daughter would use it as a weapon while we were still alive. I stood there, listening, as she continued. I'm telling you, Trevor, it's half mine. She won't even notice if we sell fast. I'll say she agreed to it. I backed away before the anger could rise to my face. I knew what came next, schemes built on arrogance. The next morning, I noticed changes in her behavior. She asked for old property files, said she wanted to organize the paperwork for me. I watched her make copies of documents she pretended to return. She thought I didn't see. 2 days later, she left earlier than planned. On her desk, she forgot a sticky note. Written on it, Trevor, call the buyer. Cash deal only. That was my confirmation. I called an old friend, Geraldine Price, the sharpest real estate attorney Charleston ever produced. We'd worked cases together back when men said women didn't belong in boardrooms. I told her everything. She laughed softly and said, "Let's see how your daughter handles a real contract." Meanwhile, Margot and Trevor went into full motion. He started digging through legal forums, searching for loopholes that would let a co-owner sell property without consent. He even called one of his broker friends in Florida, boasting that they were about to close the deal of a lifetime. In their minds, I was clueless. They saw me as an aging widow, living off memories and ocean air. They forgot who taught them how contracts work. Margot convinced herself she was justified. I'm on the deed, she told Trevor. It's half mine. She'll never even notice. They met with a private buyer, someone Trevor knew from a past deal. The buyer offered cash. They jumped at it. They planned to sign, take the money, and move to Florida before I even realized what had happened. I knew every step of it. Geraldine and I had already mirrored the paperwork. Every document Margot believed was real was already part of my plan. That night, I sat by the window listening to the waves crash against the rocks. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it grows in your own home, shaped by comfort and greed. What Margot didn't know was that I'd been watching every move, and I'd already called my oldest friend, the best attorney in Charleston, to set the perfect trap. Comment: Peace Fund, if you believe in protecting what's yours. Let me know you're still here. I first noticed the shift in Margot's behavior weeks before that phone call. She had grown cautious, quieter, watching me more than she used to. The way she spoke had changed, too, overly sweet, careful with her words. A guilty person always overcompensates. She started visiting more often, claiming she missed me. But she never stayed for long. Every time she left, my office looked a little different. A folder misplaced, a document slightly out of order. She thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. After 40 years in real estate law, I could sense deceit, like a scent in the air. And this time, it reeked of my own bloodline. One Thursday morning, I drove to meet Marcus Sullivan, my old law partner of 30 years. We built our careers side by side, fighting greedy developers, shady investors, and every kind of fraud imaginable. Marcus had retired 2 years ago to fish and complain about the government, but when I called, he said, "Viv, if you're reaching out, someone's done something stupid." I smiled. You have no idea. We met at a small diner outside Charleston, the kind of place where gossip dies before it's repeated. I laid out everything, Margot's questions, the copied deeds, the overheard call, and her newfound confidence. Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowing. "She's been researching co-owner property laws. I've seen searches under her name. And Viv, she's tried pulling digital copies of your signature from old documents." I felt something sharp inside me twist. My heart broke as a mother, but my mind sharpened as a lawyer. Emotion clouded judgment. I couldn't afford that now. Marcus studied me for a long moment. "You're not going to confront her, are you?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm going to let her finish what she started." He frowned. "That's a dangerous game." "Only if you don't know the rules." The decision was made that night. I would let my daughter commit the act, every paper trail, every digital footprint, every word on record. I'd build a wall of proof so high she couldn't crawl out of it. A week later, I called Catherine Reynolds, my closest friend and former business partner. We built half the beachfront developments in South Carolina together. Smart, ruthless, and loyal to the bone. "Catherine," I said, "how would you like to play the role of a buyer?" She laughed. "What kind of buyer?" "The kind that teaches someone a lesson." Over coffee the next morning, I laid out the plan. Catherine would pose as the private cash buyer Trevor had been searching for. Marcus would handle the paperwork behind the scenes, ensuring every move was legal and traceable. We staged a complete sale, legitimate-looking contracts, a fake escrow transfer, even a buyer's attorney to handle closing. Margot and Trevor would believe they were walking away with $850,000. In reality, they'd be walking into evidence of fraud, wire deception, and forged signatures. I even stopped paying the property taxes deliberately, allowing minor liens to accumulate. That way, when the fake sale went through, the title check would flag those liens, forcing Trevor to clear them with what he thought was part of the payment. It made everything look real. Marcus was meticulous. "You're playing this like a chess master," he said. "It's not chess," I replied. "It's parenting." In my home, I began preparing the other side of the defense, security. I had cameras installed around the office, hidden well enough that even I forgot where half of them were. Every phone conversation was recorded. Every document Margot touched was photographed. A mother's intuition had turned into an attorney's operation. One evening, Marcus called again. His voice was lower than usual. "Viv, if this goes through, she'll face charges. Real ones. Are you ready for that?" I stared out at the ocean from my living room window. She already destroyed our relationship when she decided to steal from me. I'm only finishing the paperwork. He sighed. "Then I'll make sure the trap is airtight." For weeks, I played the part of the clueless old woman. I let Margot call and pretend to care. She'd ask, "Mom, do you need help organizing your files?" Or, "Have you thought about selling the beach house?" Each time I smiled. "Maybe someday, dear. It's just sitting there collecting dust. She believed she was winning. That belief was the key. When Catherine sent me the mock closing documents, I read through them carefully, every clause tight, every date precise. The sale would be finalized the following Friday, exactly 2 weeks from that day. As I signed my alias on the dotted line, a small smile crept across my face. I even picked the closing date, I told Marcus, because on that exact day, Margot will discover that stealing from a real estate attorney was the stupidest decision she's ever made. Closing day arrived like the calm before a storm. For Margot, it was the day her new life began. For me, it was the day every domino I'd placed would start to fall. The meeting was scheduled at 10 in the morning at a small real estate office in downtown Charleston. I knew every detail, every player, every script line. Catherine was already there, playing her role as the private buyer with an elegance that could fool anyone. She wore pearls and a smile that said money came easy. Margot walked in 5 minutes late, confident but nervous, carrying a folder too neatly arranged. Her hair was styled, her makeup heavy, her perfume sharp enough to fill the room before she spoke. Trevor waited outside in the car, already dreaming about what he'd buy first. "Good morning," Catherine said warmly, extending a hand. "You must be Mrs. Reeves." "Please call me Margot," she replied, feigning charm. "I'm so glad this worked out quickly. My mother's health isn't great, so it was important to take care of this now." The real estate agent, Mr. Lang, nodded politely. He already knew the truth, but played along. He'd been feeding me every word of this performance in real time. Margot opened her folder and slid out an authorization letter, Vivienne Margaret Hartwell's signature, scrawled neatly at the bottom. A near-perfect imitation. She had practiced. I'd seen the test pages she'd thrown away. Catherine accepted the papers with graceful patience, skimming the text as her lawyerly mind worked beneath the surface. "Power of attorney," she murmured. "And your mother's fully aware of the sale?" "Of course," Margot said smoothly. "She's been meaning to sell for years. It's a burden for her now. I'm only helping her." Catherine tilted her head. "That's admirable. How old did you say she was?" Margot hesitated, then smiled. 68. "And she's competent?" Catherine asked casually. "Legally, I mean." The question hung heavy in the air. Margot's hands tightened around the folder. "My mother has mild dementia," she said finally, "but she insisted I handle her affairs. She forgets small things like phone calls or documents. I'm protecting her." A small lie coated in fake concern. Catherine didn't react, only nodded thoughtfully. Mr. Lang kept his face still, though I imagined the fire burning behind his neutral expression. Outside, Trevor paced, checking his phone and whispering about deposits, bank transfers, and moving trucks. He'd already told friends they were relocating to Florida for a fresh start. I could almost hear him bragging, "Sold the family beach house, easy money." Inside, Catherine continued her role flawlessly. "Would you mind if I spoke with your mother directly?" she asked, setting the papers aside. Margot froze. "That's not possible," she said quickly. "She's resting. Doctor's orders. Stress isn't good for her." Catherine's eyes softened. "Oh, I completely understand. I'd just like to confirm everything before signing. You know how these things can be?" Margot forced a smile, her pulse visible at her neck. "There's nothing to worry about. She trusts me completely." The agent gave a faint nod, pretending to accept the explanation. "Let's move forward then," he said, his voice even. Margot exhaled in relief. The lie had landed. The stack of documents lay before her: ownership transfer, deed acknowledgement, and sale confirmation. She picked up the pen, her fingers trembling slightly as she signed Vivienne Margaret Hartwell in bold, practiced strokes. The name that wasn't hers. When it was over, Catherine smiled and extended a check for $850,000, the ink still wet. Margot took it with shaking hands. "Pleasure doing business," Catherine said, rising from her chair. "Likewise," Margot replied, voice breaking slightly from the pressure. The entire act took less than 40 minutes. Years of entitlement condensed into a single criminal transaction. Outside, Trevor met her at the door, eyes wide as he saw the check. "You did it?" She nodded, grinning. "I told you she'd never know." They laughed, walked arm in arm to the car, and drove away. In the parking lot, Trevor opened a bottle of cheap champagne from the glove compartment. They toasted to freedom, to finally being done with the old woman. Neither of them noticed the discreet cameras fixed to the office door, nor did they know that the notary, the real estate agent, and the buyer were all part of my quiet operation. Every forged signature, every spoken lie was now on record. That night, I sat on my veranda with a glass of wine, the Atlantic breeze brushing across my face. My phone buzzed. Margot's name flashed on the screen. Her voice was sugar-sweet, dripping with false concern. "Mom, we're leaving tomorrow. I sold your beach house." I smiled into the wind. "You made a big mistake," I whispered. And then I started laughing. Subscribe if you want to see entitled family members get exactly what they deserve. The phone rang as the last light of sunset hit the waves. I already knew who it was before I looked at the screen. Margot. For a moment, I said nothing. Then the laughter came, low, uncontrollable, almost joyful. It poured out of me like years of restraint finally breaking. Margot hesitated. "Mom? Why are you laughing? Are you okay?" I wiped a tear from my eye, still chuckling. "Oh, sweetheart," I said softly. "You made a big mistake." Silence on her end, then sharp. "What are you talking about?" "The beach house," I said. "You sold it." Her tone stiffened. "Yes, I did. You weren't using it. And I'm on the deed, Mom. It's half mine." "I have every right." Her voice shook slightly, betraying the confidence she was trying to project. I could hear Trevor in the background, pacing, whispering directions like some backseat lawyer. "Trevor says I'm fully entitled," she added. "You've been living off that property for years. I only took what's mine." "Did you?" I asked quietly. "Of course," she said, forcing a laugh. "You always told me to be independent. Well, I am. We're moving to Florida. Starting fresh." The words landed like dull thuds against the quiet hum of the ocean. I let the pause stretch long enough for her to get nervous. "Margot," I said, my tone shifting, "tell me, how soon does the money transfer?" She hesitated, then spoke with pride. "Tomorrow morning. By lunch, it'll clear. We'll be gone before noon." I murmured, swirling my wine glass. "I wouldn't make any travel plans with that money." That caught her off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "you might want to hold off on spending stolen funds. Banks tend to freeze accounts when fraud reports hit their system," she snapped. "You can't control me anymore. I'm 42 years old, Mom. I don't need your approval." Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I could almost see her face, angry, flushed, panicked, but trying to hold it together. "I'm not trying to control you," I said evenly. "I'm warning you." "You always do this?" she shouted. "You twist things, make me feel small, like I'm stupid." "Well, not this time. I've already signed everything. The house is gone, and there's nothing you can do about it." In the background, Trevor's voice rose. "Hang up on her. Don't let her manipulate you." I smiled, slow and cold. "Ah, Trevor, still giving legal advice without a degree?" The line went silent for a beat. Then Margot hissed, "Don't talk to him like that." "Margot," I said, my voice dropping an octave, "enjoy your last night of freedom. What's that supposed to mean?" "Tomorrow," I said, my tone turning to ice, you'll understand what it means to steal from someone who spent 40 years writing real estate law. She tried to speak, but I could hear the fear creeping in now, the edges of panic she couldn't hide. You can't, Mom. You can't do this. It's already done. I smiled. We'll see. Then I ended the call. For a long time, I didn't move. The world around me was still, the air thick with salt and judgment. I poured myself another glass of wine and walked out to the veranda. The sea looked calm, indifferent, like it had seen every betrayal and didn't care who won or lost. I sat down and watched the sun sink below the horizon. The sky burned gold, then crimson, then disappeared into black. In 12 hours, every domino I'd carefully arranged would fall, and my daughter would finally learn that blood doesn't grant you the right to betray. I hung up, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my veranda, watching the sunset. In 12 hours, every domino I'd carefully arranged would fall, and my daughter would finally learn that blood doesn't grant you the right to betray. Comment, stand your ground if you're Team Vivian. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds as Margot slid her sunglasses on and admired herself in the mirror. Her reflection smiled back, calm, triumphant. The check inside her purse felt like power itself. $850,000. Finally, freedom. No more lectures, no more judgment, no more living under her mother's shadow. Trevor waited in the car, tapping the steering wheel impatiently. "You sure everything's clear?" he asked. Margot grinned. "Of course, I told you, once this clears, we're gone by noon. Florida, here we come." They pulled up to the bank. Margot strutted inside, heels clicking on the tile. She handed the check to the teller with a casual smile. The young woman's polite grin faded as her eyes scanned the document. She looked up, then down again. "Is there a problem?" Margot asked, feigning patience. "One moment, ma'am." The teller disappeared into the back. Margot's fingers tapped the counter. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, a man in a navy suit appeared, the bank manager. His expression was stiff. "Mrs. Langford?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "Could you please step into my office?" Margot frowned. "Why? I have somewhere to be." He gestured toward a side door. "Please, ma'am." Inside the small glass office, the manager folded his hands. "This check was flagged overnight. It's part of a pending fraud investigation. I'm afraid I can't process it." Margot blinked. "What?" "The funds are frozen. The issuing party has reversed payment. We've been instructed to contact local authorities." Her stomach turned. "That's ridiculous. I sold that house legally." The manager pressed a button under his desk. "You'll need to wait here while we resolve this." Outside, the sound of sirens grew louder. Margot glanced through the office window and froze. 2 police cars were pulling into the lot. Trevor was already out of the car, pacing wildly. Moments later, the sheriff stepped inside, holding a thick folder. "Margot Langford?" "Yes." Her voice trembled. "You're being served. Fraudulent sale of property, attempted identity theft, and civil damages. You'll also find a restraining order from Mrs. Vivian Hartwell." Margot's world tilted. This can't be happening." As the officers escorted her outside, her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. "Hello?" she whispered. "Mrs. Langford," came a calm male voice. "This is Marcus Sullivan, your mother's attorney. The transaction has been voided. Every document you signed is now evidence. My advice, get legal counsel." Margot's knees nearly gave out. She set me up." "I'd say she protected herself," Marcus said, then hung up. She stumbled toward the car. Trevor was throwing clothes into a duffel bag. "You said she'd never find out," he shouted. "You said it was legal." "Stop yelling, I'll fix it." "You? Fix this?" He zipped the bag. I told you to get her actual signature. You said it was foolproof. He slammed the trunk shut and glared at her. You're on your own. The tires screeched as he sped away, leaving her standing alone in the parking lot, humiliated and shaking. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered, without thinking. Margot, said a familiar voice. Calm, steady, unforgiving. Catherine. I thought you should know, Catherine said coolly. There was never a real buyer. I've been Vivienne's business partner for 20 years. We handled everything ourselves. Margot's breath caught. You were part of this? You wanted to play with sharks, Catherine replied. You got bitten. The line went dead. Margot stumbled toward her car, hands trembling, mind spinning. The bank doors closed behind her. Her mother's voicemail played in her head. The laughter, the words, you made a big mistake. She tried calling Vivienne, but it went straight to voicemail. Again. And again. Her life was falling apart in real time. Money gone, husband gone, future gone. Then, as she sat in her car staring blankly at the steering wheel, her phone buzzed once more. A message. From Mom. 7 words. Hilton Head House, 2 p.m. Come alone. She stared at it for a long moment, her pulse quickening. What are you planning, Mother? She whispered. She started the car and pulled out of the lot, unaware that the real lesson hadn't even begun. She thought the nightmare had peaked, but by the time she reached Hilton Head, she'd realized the true meaning of losing everything. If you're living for this energy, hit like and share this with someone who needs to learn what real boundaries look like. By the time I reached Hilton Head, the sky was gray and heavy with salt mist. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. I pulled up to the address I thought I knew, my old beach house, the place I had built with Richard. Only it didn't look like I remembered. The shutters hung crooked. Paint peeled from the siding. The once white porch railings were streaked with mold. The yard, wild and overgrown, swallowed the path to the door. A bright orange notice fluttered against the wall. Foreclosure. County seizure order. I stepped out slowly, the wind stinging my face. My daughter stood there in disbelief, clutching her phone, her lips trembling. What is this? She whispered. What happened to the house? I stayed silent for a moment, letting her confusion hang in the air. Then I said softly, You picked the wrong house, darling. She turned, startled. I was standing in the driveway next door. Behind me, a stunning oceanfront mansion rose against the waves. Fresh paint, clean lines, glass balconies glinting under the coastal light. This, I said, extending my hand toward it, is my beach house, the real one, the one you never knew about. Margot blinked, speechless. Her gaze darted between the decaying property she'd tried to steal and the pristine estate behind me. You tricked me? I warned you you'd made a big mistake. I smiled faintly. Come inside. She followed, silent, every step heavier than the last. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and sea breeze. My walls were lined with framed degrees, photos of properties, and a single wedding picture, Richard and I, smiling, decades younger. Margot's eyes darted around. What is this place? How? I cut her off. That house you sold? Bait. Worthless. I stopped paying taxes 2 years ago when I realized you were planning something. I let the liens pile up. By the time you found the deed, it wasn't worth a dime. Her face went pale. You did that on purpose? Yes, I said simply, because I needed proof. I walked to the table and placed a thick folder in front of her. Every call, every forged document, every conversation you had with Trevor. Recorded, time-stamped, notarized. She looked down at the papers, her voice shaking. You've been watching me. For months, I said. And you would have kept going if I hadn't stopped you. I opened another folder. Inside were financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, all neatly organized. You thought that old house was my nest egg, I said quietly. Margot, that was pocket change. I own 6 properties across the coast, 4 trusts, several partnerships, $4.2 million to be exact. Her knees gave out and she sank into a chair. You let me humiliate myself. No, I said. You did that all on your own. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the distant crash of the ocean outside. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. My voice came out colder than I intended. You meant to take what wasn't yours. You meant to hurt me. Her tears came then. Real ones. The first I'd seen in years. I sat across from her, folding my hands. You know what the worst part is? It's not the forgery. It's not the theft. It's that you thought I was weak enough to let it happen. She lowered her head, sobbing. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I had raised, loved, protected. The same little girl who once ran barefoot across this very beach, laughing. Then I slid another folder toward her, thin, sealed. Her name written across it. I didn't call you here to send you to prison, I said softly. I called you here to give you one chance, one choice. And what you decide in the next 5 minutes will determine the rest of your life. She looked up, tears still running down her face. What's inside? I leaned back, watching her carefully. Your redemption or your end. The decision is yours. I checked my watch, calm and steady. 5 minutes. That's all she had to prove whether she still had a soul worth saving. Comment if you believe in second chances. Should she forgive her? I slid the final folder across the table. Margot's eyes were red, swollen from crying. She didn't even open it. Inside, I said quietly, are 2 paths. One leads to prison. The other leads to redemption. She swallowed hard. What do you want me to do? I took a slow breath. Full restitution. Every dollar of legal costs. You'll work for it. You'll attend therapy. You'll admit what you did. To me, to yourself, and to the people who helped you do it. That's the only way you stay out of court. Her voice cracked. You'd make me do that? I'd make you face yourself, I said. Because that's the one thing you've always run from. For a long moment, she sat in silence, shaking. Then she whispered, Okay. It wasn't defiance this time, it was surrender, the real kind. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. Trevor's name flashed across the screen. She answered, on instinct. Trevor? His voice was cold. Don't call me again, I already filed the papers. The line went dead. She looked down, tears dripping onto the table. That man was never your future, I said. He was your mirror. You saw in him what you refused to see in yourself. She nodded slowly. Then I guess this is the start of me changing that. I stood. Good. Because I'm not saving you from the consequences. I'm giving you the tools to rebuild after them. A year passed. Margot's life looked nothing like it once had. She managed a small retail store in Savannah, long hours, modest pay. But she showed up every day. Her restitution checks arrived at my office monthly. Each one signed in her shaky handwriting. She attended therapy twice a week and volunteered at a local women's shelter on weekends. For the first time in her life, she earned what she had. And in that quiet, unseen work, she began to change. One morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting instantly. Dear Mom, I'm not writing for money. I'm not writing for pity. I just want to thank you for not giving up on me when you had every reason to. If you're willing, I'd like to see you. Just coffee. Nothing else. I read it twice before folding it neatly. 2 weeks later, we met at a quiet cafe by the water. She looked older, thinner, but there was something different in her eyes. Clarity, humility. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "Hi, Margot." We sat for a while, just sipping coffee. No grand apologies, no rehearsed speeches. She spoke honestly about therapy, about working, about how much she'd lost and what it taught her. When she finished, I said, "I forgive you. But trust? That takes years to rebuild." She nodded. "I understand. I'm not asking for your trust. I'm asking for a chance to earn it." That was the first time in years I believed her. We made small steps after that, supervised visits, regular check-ins and boundaries. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Final scene. Now most evenings I sit on my terrace overlooking the ocean, the same view Richard and I loved. I pour a glass of wine and let the sound of the waves wash away what's left of the past. I think about justice, not the loud, vengeful kind, the quiet kind, the kind that restores balance without destroying your soul. People talk about forgiveness like it's weakness. It isn't. It's clarity. It's choosing peace after chaos. Family doesn't mean you allow harm. Blood doesn't buy access to your peace. And sometimes love means stepping back and letting someone learn through their own fall. I glance at the sunset, gold light spilling across the horizon. "I'm 68 years old," I whisper to myself. "I've earned every dollar, every property, every breath of peace I have, and I will never again apologize for protecting what I built." Because you don't owe anyone the fruit of your labor, especially those who'd burn your tree down to steal it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more stories of quiet justice. Hit that notification bell, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is peace.